Welcome to this year's Gerald Lee Lectures. It's a great honor and pleasure to be able to hold these lectures again. These are the 7th in the series. Eighth. It's funny how COVID and pandemics make things blur. They are held in the memory of Gerald Lee, who was an eminent breeder. For those who don't remember or didn't have the pleasure to meet him and work with him and his family. Gerald's influence on the modern thoroughbred is a lasting legacy, not just in this country, but also has affected global breeding through a relatively small group of broodmares. He produced some fantastic horses, and we have his co-workers here in that project in the room here today: Luca Kumani, Nick Wingfield Digby, Sarah Whitney. And I think the legacy of the small owner breeder, who is also a thinker and a contributor and a student of the breed, is something that perhaps modern breeding is lacking a little bit. We don't have finding the smaller breeder with great influence is it's been very difficult in this commercial world. Gerald certainly was a thinker and influenced breeding of the modern thoroughbred, not just through what he did with his own horses, but by contributing to the industry, be it through the TBA, be it through the the British Horse Board before it became the BHA, and so forth. So involvement with breeding, involvement with one's passion is so important. I would like to thank his family and the Gerald Lee Charitable Trust for enabling us to host these meetings, and for what they have put into not just the thoroughbred, but other areas of interest, such as cancer research and so forth. The question I was asked here, which Camilla put down for me, is what has changed in the last 20 years of preparing young stock for sales? Well, I'm not the one to answer that question. I'm the one who can only observe and see what's happened in the sales ring in those 20 years and what has changed. I'd say 30, 35 years. It's become far more technical, far more specialized, far more, I would say, pressure-driven through time constraints and staffing constraints. So the time when one would see people walking their yearlings has now been replaced by horse walkers, treadmills, and so forth. I think one of the downsides of all of this has been the lack in human-horse interaction, and the lack and the loss of that personal relationship between horse and handler and owner and presenter, because of these time pressures and time constraints. And that, to me, is reflected in what we see here in the sales ring, in the pre-sales ring, in the way the animals are being presented, and why certain aspects of horsemanship have been lost. What progress has been made? Well, I think the change, and in certainly coming from the nutritional side and feed, and how we feed our horses, thanks to research into the whole feeding side of things, has been tremendous. I think we see far fewer or lower incidence, I wouldn't be able to quantify this, in growth problems such as OCDs and so forth, chips and so on. And that, to a great extent, is thanks to modern nutrition and the development and the research into that field. And I think today's will highlight that in many ways. Just a few housekeeping comments. These lectures are being recorded. They will be put onto the Beaufort Cottage Education Trust website in due course. So please, when you're contributing into discussions and so on, please wait for the microphone so you can speak into it, so we can hear and we can perpetuate your comments and questions for time immemorial on the web.